Well, hello, and welcome to Aftershock Weekly episode 30. 30. Wow, that's crazy. It's gone by pretty quick. This morning I had an opportunity to share with my Trust Equity group, which is a group of like-minded business owners and professionals that get together and share. And I had the opportunity to present what we do a little bit. So I actually took them through my journey in marketing. I've been doing marketing for about 18 years now, ever since I was 16 years old, and it brought me back to my first job, which was lead box for Bally Total Fitness. It's kind of funny, when I got the job, I kept hounding a guy. He was the general manager there, Sean. I went in there, introduced myself, and he's like, I don't really have anything for you, but I wanted to work in the gym industry because I was really into fitness, and I kept going in there, and sure enough, he's like, hey, I've got a lead box job. You know what that is? And I had no idea. But lead box would go on to be a big part of my story, at least for the next 5 years, to where I would go on to be the field marketing director for Bally's and then, Pure Fitness. But I think back to my lead box days, and just so you know what a lead box is, that's where you walk into a restaurant or you go into the bank and you see a little box sitting there and it's got some sort of offer. In this case, it was win a free year, sign up today, get 7 free days, to the health club. You would put in your information, and then someone would come along, collect those leads, give them to the salespeople, and they would call them to get you into the club so that you can see it. Well, I think back, and I learned a lot of business principles from that. So let's go through a few of them. First thing is, I had to have a system. At one point in time, I had 400 lead boxes locally here, and only one other person that worked for me, which meant that we had to set out these boxes and create relationships with businesses of all types here in the Phoenix metro area. Well, you had to have a system in place, and what I mean by that is you had to go during certain times of day, because you had to talk to the business owner or manager that could approve you to have the box in there. 2, I had to give them a value for value offer. We were able to offer them a free membership to have that box in there because it helped us out. And we would also do cross promotion. So we came in with value. And again, in today's business, I always come in with value, and that's an important tip. And also the types of businesses that were going to work the best for us. We knew that if it had high foot traffic, we had a better chance to get leads out of that business than if it had low foot traffic. We also knew that if it was some place where there was a line and people had to wait, that we had a better chance of getting a lot more leads because they're sitting there doing nothing and they got bored. I remember this is way before the smartphones today. I think my phone back then could call and it could calculate. That was about it. There were no games or anything. So we had a little more captured attention back then. Next thing I learned was that 80% of my leads were coming from 20% of our boxes. It's called the Pareto principle. And that's pretty typical in business as well. 20% of your accounts, 20% of your customers are going to account for 80% of your volume. So what you want to do is make sure that you're spending time with that 20%, and then you're growing a like audience of who that 20% is. For us with Leadbox, we found that fast food restaurants and banks, as well as check cashing places, did very, very well. They would typically produce a lot more. Filiberto's was one of my favorite places to have a lead box, especially if we get on the counter. Part of that was a little bit about they felt guilty about what they were eating, and they're like, hey, next week I should start working out. Now that's marketing too, making sure that you know your audience and being strategic about it. The next thing that I take into account today is that they're just like farming. There's a seed time, there's a progression time, and there's a harvest time. Putting out boxes and getting a route set up takes time. I was very good at it, and I could get out 10 boxes a day, which meant I probably had to talk to 25 to 30 different companies, and you can only talk to so many companies during working hours. So getting out 10 boxes in a day was a lot. Most of the people I had working for me at different various times, they could get out 5 to 7. So knowing that when I put out the box, I'm not going to get leads at least for a week, because then we would go out and check it. But when you're putting out boxes and you need to put out 100 in an area, well, you're going to spend at least 10 business days, which is 2 weeks, just putting out boxes, making sure that's your focus. So there's a seed time. We're planting those seeds. We're getting those boxes out there. And then there's a progression time of, okay, now they've got to fill up. People have got to put their leads in. And then there's a harvest time. We come around, we collect them, and now we have a fruitful lead system in place. But that time is just like in business. You think about when you start a business. Well, you have to put a whole lot of things in place before you actually start taking in revenue and selling products and services. But then you start selling products and services, and then the money comes in, right? So there's a progression there. Another important principle I learned was the pruning process and making sure that I had a good accounting going on of my boxes, because people used to steal them. Boxes went away, they would take the pens, they would take the pads, and making sure that they were nurtured and cared for every single week so that I didn't go 3 weeks without a pen, because guess what? Most people aren't going to say, hey, let me find a pen real quick to sign up for this. You want to make sure it's as convenient as possible. There's a certain pruning that goes on that you need to be aware of in business as well. You're going to lose certain accounts, but what you can learn from that is, okay, well, what can I do to make sure that I am not losing as many? So with Leadbox, one of the things we did with our pruning is making sure that it was on the counter close to an employee. We had less pads, less pens, and less boxes stolen because there was somebody who had eyes on it. So you can take an account of how you're being pruned, how you're losing boxes, or how you're losing accounts, and say, why am I losing this? What can I change? So those are 4 big things that I learned and I still take into my business today from my Leadbox days. So with that, I hope you enjoyed episode 30, and we'll leave you with a quote.